Hey everybody, welcome to a video episode of Is It Fascist from What a Hell of a Way to Die. I don't know if we're going to be doing more of these, maybe. Um, I just know that this was one that I really wanted to get off of my chest and yell about a lot. So I recently finished reading the Harry Potter series. Never finished it before. I'm 35 years old. Those were all coming out right around the time that was really like appropriate for me to be reading them. But then I just stopped reading them because it's no longer a teenager. I'm not going to like try to pretend I was reading anything better. I read Star Wars books, Star Wars novelization, so I'm not trying to like dog on it and be like, then I grew up. No, then I became 20 and 21 and found out about drinking. But so I never finished the series, so I recently finished the series. And the only really knowledge that I've ever had about what people felt about politics wise about it was the whole Dumbledore's army, especially with Trump these days. People want to make it into Trump is like Voldemort and the Ministry of Magic being taken over and all this happy bullshit. Yes, I get that, but also the Ministry of Magic should have been fucking taken over a long time ago. I was fucking surprised by just how fucked up and fascist like all the undertone stuff was. Like and J.K. Rowling not feeling a need to like ever fix any of it, I guess. So the thing that really like made me that brought this out to me first, and then I started like examining a lot of the rest of it, is so when they were gonna go and get the Horcrux from Gringotts, right? And so they had to get Grip Hook to help him, a goblin who the goblins. I mean, we don't need to get into the goblins, but extremely problematic. But anyway, so he says, grabs Grip Hook, and Grip Hook's like, "I'll help you in, but we want the sword of Godric Gryffindor back." And Harry Potter's like, why would we do that? And they're like, "Well, it's goblin made. It belongs to us. It was taken from us." And then so Harry has kind of like a mental like, oh wow, do we was it taken, was it stolen, was it bought? I don't know, I don't know. And like he has like 5 seconds of like a moment of like introspection, just a little bit, and then he's just like immediately like, well, anyway, how are we gonna fuck this guy over to not give him the sword back? Luckily, everything works out for him because Rip just dies, as everybody seems to around Harry Potter. But there's Grip Hook is like has all these like he calls them the wizards and the witches, the wand holders, and that there's like wand legislation that doesn't let people other than humans have wands for some reason. And later on, Bill, I think one of the Weasleys is like, well, they have different beliefs about ownership. That if somebody buys something, it doesn't get passed on. It should go back to the goblins after that person dies. And rather than like examine that or do like that's supposed to be the well, that's why it's okay to fuck over the goblins. Rather than like why don't we have an actual conversation and try to figure out what the fuck's going on with this sword? Because as we learn, like all of the history of Dumbledore and Hogwarts is like steeped in just absolute buffoonery and dickishness and just forcing other people to do whatever they want. I mean, not only do we have the goblins, like the goblins also bring up the wands, and they're like, we can't, we're not allowed to have these wands. Like, whose fucking law is that? Like, that's the Ministry of Magic or the Council of Wizards for, the further back you get. But, like, those are just humans making the shit up. And the goblins rebel constantly. Like, if you look at it, there's, like, goblin rebellions all throughout history, going back 500-600 years, which they should, because fuck these wizards. Fuck the wizards and the witches and the humans, really. Like, humanity is the weakest of all the magical users because they you eventually learn how to do magic without a wand, but you have to have a wand to really do like strong and extreme magic. And even then, like, even the wands have their own like if you defeat somebody in combat, you steal it from them, then the wand is stronger. Like the wands are like living things. Everything is stronger in magic than humans. Even the fucking house elves can apparate and disapparate where humans can't. Well, we put up all these magical things. Well, the house elves doesn't matter, which really, really got to talk about house elves, because I understand like that there's this idea of like, well, look, they really love being a slave. They love to, look at Winky. Winky was just drinking herself into a stupor because she was so sad that she got fired. Fuck that. That is insane and incredibly fascist to just put a slave race in there and be like, I mean, they kind of like it. And you have Hermione and eventually Ron and Dumbledore who have the like, well, we should really do something to liberate these elves. But like every other wizard and witch is just like, no, those are our slaves. What are you fucking trying to do? We don't want to clean up after ourselves. We don't want to have to cook and clean and do all the other bullshit that the house elves do. We have house elves for that stuff. Like, it is insane to me that there's a whole slave class in here that in the end it's just like, they're still there, I guess. Like, the house elves joined the war at the end, attacking the Death Eaters and stuff. But they're incredibly, like, everybody is more powerful. You've got the centaurs who mostly keep away from the humans because they're like, fuck the humans. They use magic as ways to attack us. Everything about humanity in the Harry Potter series feels like, they should be constantly under threat and under attack and worried about getting fucked over by everybody else that they're fucking over. Because there's no reason for the Ministry of Magic to have, you walk into the Ministry of Magic and there's this fountain that's got like a wizard, a witch, a centaur, and a house elf, and they're all doing magic at each other. But like only two of those are seen as first-class citizens, as the wizard and the witch. Everybody else is kind of, like, no, you used to stay over there. You guys don't get to have wands. You guys don't get to have this, that, and the other thing, because that's only for us. So that is insane. And there's no representation on the Ministry of Magic from anybody else. At least not that I've seen. Maybe there is. I cannot imagine that anybody would, that any goblin or any elf or any centaur or a merperson or giant fucking spiders, I bet they can do magic. I bet everybody can do magic in this world. Except for the wizards, or except for the wizards, who kind of have you can accidentally do magic at like 6 or 7, but it's not until you like go to school and you start learning all these things that you really get into the magic. But also you have to really fucking buy into the insane fascism that they have, that they just allow, and that they just are constantly they're not genociding them, but everybody else is a second-class citizen compared to the humans in Harry Potter. So those book series are incredibly suspect to me now. And like, I get it, it's a kid's book, but also there was no reason for a lot of this to be in here. I mean, but it's also very British. And what is a British museum if it's not filled with stolen shit from other cultures? Then it's just an empty room, right? Maybe some fancy swords and some suits of armor or whatever. But for the most part, I mean, I guess they have to it's very British to be like, and then kind of the goblins just don't understand. They just don't get it the way we get it, so therefore it's okay to kind of try to fuck them over a little bit. They don't understand property ownership like we understand property ownership. Like, it really feels like the goblins are a stand-in, like, whether purposely or not, for Native American. They would be a perfect stand-in for Native Americans in America, where they're like, nobody owns this land. It's just land. It's just we're all here. This is territory, but there's not a border. Nobody owns it. Like, well, we own it now. It's like, it doesn't make sense. How can you own land? It's just land. Same thing with the goblins. So, fuck this book series. Like, I finished it, and like near the end of it, I was just really kind of like, I don't care. Like, I knew how it ended, obviously, but after a lot of the stuff that was happening in book 7, and after like realizing what a huge dick Dumbledore is. And that's a whole fucking podcast on its own. How stupid he is, how stupid everybody else decides to be, and just how racist everybody is towards anybody that's non-human, other than Hermione. Hermione's the only like decent person. Even she's just like, we shouldn't try to fuck over the goblins. That's really shitty. You know why? Because Hermione was raised as a human and raised by loving parents. So. Yeah, they're going to be, Hermione's like the only halfway decent person. Hermione is like a full-on socialist, I would imagine, so that's only, that's me projecting my politics. But yeah, so that's where we're at there. So thank you. Hopefully we're going to be doing some more of these video ones. And I hope to never be this emotional about fucking Harry Potter ever again.